This is week 3 of our teaching series. We're studying through the entire book of Genesis. So right now we're still living in the Garden of Eden, right? Things are still good. Nothing's gone bad yet. Nothing's gone awry yet. The curse of sin has not come to pass. So we're still in Genesis 2 right now, and things are still good. And so what we're going to talk about today, as we're still early in the story of the creation of man and the story of Genesis, what we're talking about today is the condition of man, of humans, of man, male and female, the condition of the heart of man before corruption. Now, real soon, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about Adam and Eve's choice to eat of that fruit and to rebel against God and say, hey, let's try and be God ourselves. Let's try and be as smart as God and as enduring as God. And that's when everything goes awry, right? So that's the bad news. And we're going to talk about that in the next couple of weeks. And then ultimately we're going to talk about the good news again, which is the gospel, that Jesus came to save us from that corruption, that we're all broke down and we're all sinful and we're all guilty because of the weight of sin that is upon us because of this sin that we've inherited from our forefathers that's running through our bloodstream, but also the sin that we choose every day. So we're sinners by birth, but we're also sinners by choice. So that's the bad news. We're going to talk about how that happened in the next couple of weeks through Adam and Eve originally. And then we're going to talk about the good news, the cure to that corruption, which is Jesus. But today, if we can just take some time and let's talk about, because we don't do this very often, let's talk about human beings, the heart condition before the fall. Now, why is that important? Because that was in the past and never to be recovered. Or is it? The reason that it's important for us to talk about this today, other than just the fact that it's interesting, like what was the heart condition before sin? Another reason that it's important for us to talk about this is because what Adam broke, Christ is now fixing. This image of God in us that has been tainted and marred, Christ is now restoring that. Christ is now recovering some of the lostness of that image of God in us. So it's important for us to realize what was man originally intended to be like, the original heart condition of man. Because what I want you to believe with all your heart today is that Jesus is restoring that in you. The brokenness and the shame and the corruption and the guilt that you're carrying around, Jesus is ridding you of all that, and He's restoring in you what God always intended for humanity. So let's read this passage today, and then I've got 5 pretty simple thoughts on what the original heart condition of humanity was like. Let's read. I'll read out loud and you follow along silently. Genesis chapter 2, verses 15 through 25. It says, "The Lord God took the man and He put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and keep it. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, You may surely eat of every tree of the garden, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. For in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die." And that was true, right? Anyone run into Adam and Eve lately? No, they're not. You don't run into them at Walmart. They died. Then the Lord said, really famous words, "It is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him." Now out of the ground the Lord God had formed every beast of the field and every bird of the heavens and brought them to the man to see what he would call them. What an awesome responsibility, right? And whenever the man called every living creature That was its name. And you know, to this day we do that, right? When some new, it doesn't happen very often, when some new species, some new type of animal is discovered, we, humanity, have the responsibility and the right to give it a name. We've been doing that ever since Adam began that process. The man gave names to all livestock, and to the birds of the heavens, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam, there was not found a helper fit for him. So the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and while he slept, took one of his ribs and closed up its place with flesh. And the rib that the Lord God had taken from the man, he made into a woman and brought her to the man. Then the man said, "This at last is bone of my bones, and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And the man and his wife were both naked and were not ashamed." The word of the Lord, for which I give thanks. So the heart condition of man, and how Christ is restoring that in us. That's what we're talking about today. What Adam broke and Christ is now fixing, that's what we're talking about today. To use a word I used last week, the imago Dei, that's Latin, but the image of God in every one of us, created in God's image. What did that look like before it got all messed up? Before, like a glass bottle that shattered on the ground, before that shattering took place, what did we as humanity look like? Well, 5 ideas. Number 1, we were meant to be busy and productive. There's a misunderstanding that like, oh, the curse of sin means like now we got to go to work every day. That's not true at all. I mean, we'll talk about that in a few weeks, but the curse of sin was that now we would work hard and we would come home some days and say, I accomplished nothing. It was totally a futile day. It was a wasted day. But going to work every day, being productive, being busy about what God has given us to do, that has always been God's intention for humanity. When God created Adam, the first thing he did, he puts him in the garden and he says, work it, keep it, have dominion over it, care for it, don't ruin it, don't burn it down and smile while you do it. Take care of it. Work hard at it. Work is not a curse. It never has been. The curse is that we would be frustrated in work. The curse is that work would at times be hard, unproductive, bad for our health. But work has never been a curse. Work has always been intended for our good. That's why I believe that we as Christians who are having this imago Dei being restored in us through Jesus Christ, we should be the hardest workers out there. We should be the most creative people out there. We should be the movers and shakers in our society. Because we got an unfair advantage, known as the Holy Spirit. Work is not a curse. Everybody needs to hear this, but especially my young men whose heart my heart really goes out to you, young men, because I was one of you. You need to hear that. Everybody needs to hear this, but you need to hear what I'm about to say. It is good to go to bed tired. It is good to wake up early and still be a little tired. That has always been God's intention for us, that we would work the ground, that we would keep the ground, that we would care for the earth, that we would steward what God has given us. That we would be industrious, that we would be creative, that we would be productive, that we would be hardworking. Celebrate that. Young men, celebrate that. Young women, celebrate. All of us celebrate that. I was at our graphic artist, our printer's office on Thursday, and we were doing some of this work, and the guy was going like 10 different directions. He was answering the phone, and I said, how are you? He's a really gregarious, really friendly man. And he said, I'm doing great. He said, it's a busy day. And I thought, that'll preach. Like I'm going to say that on Sunday. I didn't tell him that, but I said, I'm going to use you an example on Sunday, because that's what we're intended to find. We're designed to find deep satisfaction in having, at times, too much to do. Now, when your work becomes your God, when your work becomes your idol, that's a different topic, right? When you're finding your self-worth in your work and you're staying late so that everybody will think highly of you because that's what really feeds your soul, that's a different story. That's not what we're talking about today. There's a different sermon for you guys, but a lot of us need this sermon. Work hard. It's God's intention. There's a second thought that I have from this passage specifically on the heart of man, the uncorrupted heart of man, and that is that we are meant, always have been meant to care for the earth. And I tell you, this idea, this truth, this teaching has been co-opted. It's like kind of stolen. So now we sometimes as Christians feel like we're like, oh no, like I'm not a whatever you want. I'm not a tree hugger, and I don't worship Mother Earth, and I'm not a whatever, And that is such a shallow, hollow misunderstanding of God's calling in our lives. In the previous chapter, Genesis 1:28, we're not going to look at that today, but in Genesis 1, and then again in this passage that we have read today, what does God say? God says to Adam and Eve, have dominion over the earth. And we as Christians, as Christ is restoring in us this original intention of the image of God, we continue to be called to have dominion over the earth, to spread out, to subdue the earth. Let me ask you this. Think on this for a moment. Think silently on this for a moment. Like, Jesus spoke some very, very similar words when he said, go into all the earth and make disciples and teach them to observe or obey all that I've commanded and baptize them, which we're going to do today. And this idea of God's people spreading out and living for His purpose and living for His agenda and spreading it globally is and always has been God's intention for His people. Yes, that calling is about souls. It is about the salvation of the lost. Absolutely. And yes, it is about subduing the earth and caring for the earth. And think on this. If you're an artist, if you're creative, I was discussing this with an artist friend of mine just a few weeks ago. If you've ever created something, maybe some three-dimensional art piece, and you're proud of it, you're happy with it, like God in the creation of the world at every turn would say, it's good. And then sometimes He would say it even more than once, this is good. And so you're an artist and you're creating and you're building and then you're finally done and you say, this is good. But all along you knew that like people were going to come along and just trample it, and they were just going to just destroy it. Would you be so celebrative in saying this is good, and somebody's about to just like burn it to the ground? But no, you're as a creator, as an artist, as someone who has made something, you would think, let's take care of this. And when God said, subdue the earth, have dominion over it, work it and keep it, you have to see the heart of God as a creator in that. And the heart of man, still uncorrupted, Adam and Eve, they were meant to care for the earth, to steward it, not destroy the earth. As image bearers, that's where we are, the Imago Dei, we bear the image of God. As God's people who bear God's image, we act as representatives of God. We talked about that last week. So I'm not fighting for my own agenda. I'm fighting for God's agenda. I'm not trying to get my own image out there in the world. And pastors really struggle with that. But it's not my image, it's the image of Christ. And Christ is the image of God. We talked about that last week. And so I'm a representative of God. And we're talking about caring for the earth. We're talking about subduing and having dominion of the earth. But we have such a misunderstanding of what that means. So think on this. I'm a representative of God. And his creation has been entrusted to me, to us, to watch over with care. I'm a representative of God, an image bearer of God. And his creation, it's under our care. It gives, like, just burn it to the ground, just clear cut it, just pave the whole thing. It gives us a different perspective on that. And you guys know me. I mean, I'm kind of redneck. I'm a hunter and fisherman, and I mean, I don't like. There's not some sort of secret agenda that I have as I get up here. I'm just telling you what I see under the banner of us being image bearers of God, representative of God, having watch care over his creation. He says, have dominion, spread out, subdue the earth, care for my creation. It's kind of like this. If I ask a babysitter to, Lydia and I, we have 5 kids. If we have a babysitter, not for Truett, he's 23, but for our little ones, if we had a babysitter come over, in fact, really, all of our kids, like, they could pretty much take care of themselves. They just need our money. That's pretty much all they need now. But not Truett, but the little ones. But back in the day, when our kids were young and they couldn't fend for themselves when we would leave the house, we hire a babysitter, right? And by the way, having 5 kids, like, built-in babysitting. Just want you to know that. It's a good reason to have more kids. But we'd have a babysitter come over, and so I forgot my point here. Okay, so they come over to watch the kids, and I were to say something like this. Again, this is an analogy, or it's kind of a metaphor for, like, God saying, watch care over my creation, right? So my little creations, our little creations, the babies, we have a babysitter come over, and I say to them, look, I want you to watch my kids, but here's the deal. Do whatever you want. Drive them downtown, go to the beach after dark, take them across for some drinks, whatever. I'll be home later. I'll come back. I'm coming back, but while I'm gone, you just do whatever you want. No. Watch care over what rightfully belongs to me, right? They're my little creations. You watch over them with care. I really believe that's what God has said to us about his creation. There's this deep sense of God saying, this is mine. You watch over it with deep care. Verse 15, it said that God put Adam in the garden to work it and to keep it. So in the fall, man rebelled against God. We'll be talking about that, and the earth rebelled against man, right? In the fall, man rebels against God, and then part of the curse, the earth rebels against man. There's thorns and drought and polluted water and pipelines and sprawl and endangered species and extinct species. So now we, a redeemed people, we are to redeem God's instruction to have dominion over, watch care over. So here's a question, and then we'll move on to the next one. But here's a question. This is the question that I struggled with this week as I was thinking about it. So hopefully it's really practical for you. How do we have dominion over the earth in a fallen world? Like, how do we do that? I mean, it's so complex. And there's so many things that are out of our control. And so many things that we, like I can't, a lot of these issues regarding the globe and the earth and nature, like I have no control and I don't know what the right answer is. But I do have this sense that as Christ has redeemed us and is redeeming us, that there is this redemption of God's calling in our lives to have dominion, watch care. So two thoughts. How do I have dominion in a fallen world? One is, I believe that we are called to consume responsibly. And you can decide what that means for you. To consume responsibly. Care for the earth in that way. And then the second thought that I have on how do we have dominion in a fallen world is that we commit ourselves to excellence. Now, I need to bridge the gap here because you might be like, what? What does that mean? Well, so as God's representatives, as Imago Dei, as people who are now redeemed by Christ, I believe that we're called to have dominion over the earth in ways that are excellent. So in other words, we are the movers and shakers. We are the artists and the musicians. We are the creative ones, bringing life and beauty and to this globe, committed to excellence. If you're going to be an attorney, be the best attorney in the firm, and we're bringing life and beauty to the culture and the world that God has created. And if you're going to be a teacher, like go early and stay late and be the best Imago Dei that you can be. And a word that I think that many of us, I need to hear, many of us here, some men in this church need to hear what I'm about to say, some women in the church need to hear what I'm about to say, but be excellent in that we finish what we start, that we do what we say we're going to do. Be a man of your word. Be a woman of your word. Decide what you're going to do in life and then do it with excellence. And what we're doing in that process, as we're excellent, as we commit ourselves to excellence, what we're doing is we're subduing the earth. We're having dominion over the earth. We're having watch care over the earth. There's a third idea on what it means, or not what it means, but what the heart of man in its uncorrupted condition look like, and that is that we are made to be in relationship, not alone. We're made to be in relationship. It comes right out of this passage. Think on this. God, all of chapter 1 and into chapter 2, God is saying, it's good. Creates it. He orders it. It's good. He makes it. He orders it. He's pushing back the waters, and he's building up the mountains, and he's separating out the lights, and at every stage, I believe he's thinking of humanity. He's making the atmosphere just the way it needs to be, not too hot, not too cold, not too dry, not too humid, just for you, just so that you can breathe this air. I mean, it's an incredible, miraculous event. And at every stage, as he's making this for you, he's saying it's good. It's good, it's good. And then one final exclamation at the end, it's good. And then for the very first time in the Bible, God says, it's not good. And what is he referring to the very first time when he says, it's not good? What he's referring to is, it is not good for human beings to be alone. He specifically says it's not good for man to be alone. But the inference there is, it's not good for any of us to be alone. In other words, it wasn't the corruption of man, sin and brokenness that causes us now to be like, well, now I need people. Like if I was perfect, like Jesus was perfect, I wouldn't need anybody. Well, Jesus was perfect, but he was always around people. But we tend to think, yeah, the curse of man, now I have flat tires and I need somebody to come help me. I get lost or stuck in Boca Chica Beach, and I need somebody to come out and rescue me. I need people to do me a solid now because of sin. But man, if I was perfect, uncorrupted, I wouldn't need anybody. And that's just not true, because uncorrupted man, God looked at him and says, it's not good for you to be alone. Never has been good. We were made to need one another. Even before sin, we were designed, purpose-built to need each other. And most everyone in this room, because I know many of you, most everyone in this room, I'm just going to tell you the truth, we are too alone. Most every one of us in this room, we don't think we need people nearly as much. You guys especially, you need to smack upside the head. You think like you're a lone wolf and you can do it on your own. And that's where sin and brokenness finds fertile ground, when we're just going it alone. You think I'm like always hounding you to get into a gospel community because like I get a commission if you get into a gospel community? I don't, just so you know. Like or because like somehow it makes me look good. No, I pour blood, sweat, and tears into our gospel communities, our small groups, because I know how good it is for us. Most everyone in this room, too alone. By degree, we all need to be pushed to live in community. That should always be the direction you were pushing yourself. Okay? And that is that we are pushing one another always toward community, not isolation, community. You have these thoughts. Should I go to gospel community tonight or stay home? You should go. Should I make more friends? Yes. Should I be more vulnerable, or should I take it slow? You should be more vulnerable. Risky, but you should be more vulnerable. Should I invite them over to the house this weekend, or should I wait for a better time? Do it this weekend. You see, because we all have a tendency to go it alone. We were not made to be alone. We were never intended to be alone. In the early church, or not the early church, but the middle-aged church, or the church of the Middle Ages, monks, there's still some around, but monks, living by themselves, never talking to anybody. No wonder they brewed and drank so much beer, because being alone will drive you to drinking. We need each other. We need community. It's never a good idea to isolate yourself. It's never a good idea to go it alone in life. Fourth idea, uncorrupted man, before sin, we are designed to complement one another. Now, complement, that's not compliment, although that's good too, right? Compliment is like what my wife always does, because she knows like I need to be fed, I need to be encouraged, and she'll compliment me, like wow, when you got a haircut, you look 10 years younger, or You know, I've always been wanted. I've always wanted to be married to a blonde guy, and boy, did I get lucky. You know, like that. She'll compliment me. Yeah, I could go on, but I won't. But that's not the word I'm talking about. Although compliment is good, compliment, there's a definition. Complementary means combining in such a way as to enhance each other, or emphasize the qualities of each other. So if you think of two pieces of a puzzle, okay, they complement one another. They fit together and make each other better in a sense. We, humanity, we were made in a complementary fashion, and that is a good thing. That's one reason why you need people. Let me say this. Adam, when he first laid eyes on Eve, thought it was a good thing that she was made to complement him. What does he say? Two words that he uses, which we use sometimes. What he said, at last, just what I've been looking for. Right? Because we're made to complement. When I haven't seen Lydia for a day or two, which almost never happens, right? Because we're married, but like she had to take Alyssa, or she took Alyssa to California for a really good thing, and she was gone for a while, right? I didn't know what to do with myself, and she came home, and I had this same response, like just what I've been looking for, right? Because we're made to complement. Well, verse 20 says that there was not found a helper fit for Adam. You should know that this word helper in the Bible, it's got several really positive meanings. One aspect to this word helper is that it's a military word. It's a high honor sort of a word, a helper. In the original word that's used in the original language. It's a strong word, it's a divine word, and God uses it to describe Eve. Not a helper could be found fit. So he created Eve, created a woman. We are equally made, male and female, in God's image. We're equally made. We have dignity, we have value, we have worth, but we're not the same. We are made in a complementary fashion, designed, engineered as male and as female in a way that complements one another. Now, I have to caution those of you that are married, and I also need to caution those of you that are single. Caution those of you that are married. We are meant to complement one another in marriage, not complete one another in marriage. When you expect your spouse to complete you, what you do is you make your spouse a god. Like, you will complete me. You will make me happy. I will find my fulfillment in you. And that leads to nothing but divorce, really. Because no one can bear the weight that God can bear. Only God can bear that weight of completing you. And some of you are committing idolatry. Not adultery, idolatry. In that you're making your spouse an idol and worshiping him and thinking he can make you happy. And then when he doesn't, you blame him, you blame her because she's not God. He's not God. We are to complement one another, not complete one another. You understand the difference? Now, for you that are single, as we're talking about how we've always been designed, even before sin, we've always been designed to complement one another. Those of you that are single, have you made an idol out of marriage, thinking that like man, I will be complete one day when I find my mate, but until then I'm not. Waiting for the perfect spouse. Guess what? Mr. or Mrs. Perfect comes along, you're going to be super angry because you're not perfect, right? but we build this idea of what it means to find a complementary, a suitable helper. When we overbuild it, it breaks. It becomes idol worship. Here's what you need to know. If you are truly Imago Dei, the image of God, then your completion is found in God. And the fact that you're single does not make you any less significant. The fact that you are an Eve and not an Adam doesn't make you any less significant. Dignity, value, worth in you as an image bearer of God. Lydia and I aren't perfect, obviously, and we don't hold unrealistic expectations of one another. We complement one another, that's all. Traditional societies, and probably, not probably, including our own, believe that you're less than until you're somebody's spouse. But think on this. Our faith is built around the God-man, Jesus, who never married. He was single his entire life. And another one of our great founders, the great founders of Christianity, the Apostle Paul, in his writings, he has this interesting, he says, you want to be married? Great. But then he also says, you're not married? Great. That was unique. That was unique in antiquity. That was unique in the time of Jesus and in the time of Paul, where someone would say, I'm complete without finding a spouse, especially for a woman in that day to say, I'm complete in God. I'm dignity, value, and worth. I don't need a man to complete me. What we do believe is that we've always been intended to complement one another. Last thought today on what must it have been like, the heart of man before corruption. We are meant for esteem, not grace. I'm actually going to tell you something. I meant to. That is true, but I got a better way of saying it. I meant to change it. I thought I did. I'm going to say it this way. In Jesus, we find grace, not disgrace. Another way of saying this, that we're not meant for shame. We're meant for grace, not disgrace. Now, where do I get that from this passage? The last verse of this passage says this, and some of you are going to chuckle, and any middle school guys in here, you're gonna belly laugh. But it says that they were naked and unashamed. That was God's original intention. That was how God designed human beings to be. I'm not talking about the literally, although that's part of it, but not the literally naked. But I'm saying think figuratively, think metaphorically, think whatever word you want to use, and there's this sense of being comfortable in who we are. No shame, no hiding around the corner, no realization of like, wow, man, if people see the real me, they're gonna laugh or run, one or the other. Like that's not what we were not intended. We were never intended for disgrace. And in Jesus we find grace. We find the redemption of this esteem, this grace. Now here's the definition of disgrace: loss of reputation or respect, especially as the result of a dishonorable action. Now, so there are ways in which many of us today we're ashamed, we're disgraced, and we've brought it on ourselves, right? Disgraced myself, and it's my own fault, and I got nobody to blame but me. But then there are some of us in the room today who are ashamed, disgraced, and it's not your fault. It's nothing you did. Sadly, it's what has been done to you. And God says, I'm a God of justice. God says, I am, vengeance is mine. What God is saying is, you don't worry about it. I mete out justice. I work it out in the end. But in the meantime, it's been a crazy year for us as a country with this Me Too movement. And what I want to say is not political. What I want to say is that I've become more mindful this year of how many women live with shame over stuff that wasn't your fault. And that's completely understandable. I mean, I don't say that I fully understand that because I haven't been through what you've been through, but it's understandable that you feel ashamed. But the good news of Jesus is that you're no longer defined by that. That's not who you are. For those of us who have brought shame on ourselves based on our own sin, us too, Jesus' work on the cross means you're no longer defined by that. God doesn't see you that way. I like to say, like, God doesn't see you the way, like, your hometown high school friends see you. Like you'll never live that reputation down. But that's not how God sees you. We're going to baptize people in just a few minutes. And it's based on this beautiful truth that what God did was, this great exchange, that God took all of your shame, and He put it on Jesus on the cross because Jesus could bear the weight, because Jesus is God and Jesus is perfect. And Jesus absorbed all of that shame and all of God's wrath. And what did He say? He said, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" Why did He say that? Because God took all your shame and He put it on Jesus, that it might be dealt with. And it has been dealt with. And it doesn't define you. But that's not all that He did. In Romans 5, among other places, if you go and read, what you'll see is that then God took all of the righteousness that He sees in Jesus, because Jesus is righteous. We're not. Jesus is righteous. We're broken. Jesus is perfect. Jesus is righteous. And the Scriptures say that God took all of Jesus' righteousness and He now put it on you. And when we baptize people today, there's nothing magic about this water. It's just a sign. It's just a symbol. It's just a representation of, look, I'm sinful. I'm broken. Not anymore. Now I come up and I am the righteousness of Christ. The shame that once defined me defines me no more. That's the beautiful story of Christianity. It's unique to Christianity. That you're not defined by you. You're defined by Jesus. So I invite you today to come to Jesus. With your shame, with your guilt, come to Jesus.